This line's about done, folks. Get excited. Let's get into it. Well, it's a new day, and I was checking out the guitar, looking over a few things before I take it apart, because I don't want to take it apart too many times if I don't have to. But I did find an issue with the frets. There's two problem spots. Right here, I can tell that the 19th fret is too high. On that end, on the high E string. The B string is fine. And all the other ones are too. Except this one. It's got a buzz. It's got a buzz right in that same area. So while I have it apart, I've got the neck shim to deal with, I've got the pickup height adjustment to deal with, and I've got that 19th fret to deal with. It never ends. Okay, well, we're back apart. I detuned, put a capo on the first fret, removed the neck screws, and we're back apart again. I've cut a small piece of steel to serve as my neck shim. I measured this out, and it's about 37 thousandths, which is really thin, and I'm hoping to be exactly what I need. But the placement of it, I'll just be putting it right here in the neck pocket, and I'll put it right below the last two screws in this body, and that'll keep it from slipping back forward or back up the neck whenever I put it together. Well, I think I showed my pick guard earlier, but I had to make a change, and it relates to the reason that this pickup would not go up and down in its in its travel. I had, if you recall, the pickup, neck pickup and middle pickup wires running directly behind this pickup, and then I had this pickup's wires joining it and coming across this side. I ended up having to change that and go above the pickup, and now it's not tied up quite as nicely as it was before, but now I've got the travel I need on that bridge pickup, and the wires still route through the cavity okay, and the the pick guard sits nice and flat. I do have one other issue that I discovered while I was tuning this up earlier. It's that this pot here is excessively noisy when you turn the knob, and to the point that it's actually kind of not working in a way, like you get no signal out of the middle of its travel. So I'm going to be putting quite a bit of deoxit down in there, and turning the knob back and forth and hopefully trying to get that corrected. This is where a spray would come in really handy, but I don't have a spray bottle of that stuff. Well, it definitely feels fine. I'm going to go ahead and hit it with a little bit more, do some more twisting, and then I'll get this pick guard back together. So I'm going to attack this fret next. I really only have to file the ends of the 19th fret. I have looked at it and I think there might be just a tiny bit of sprout going on there, but the ends of the fret wire are not exposed, so I can't really see for sure if it's sprouting. And it seems stable, it's not rocking in place. I can't push it down. Even with a clamp, I tried to push it down a little bit. So I think I'm just going to take a little bit off the ends. I've got a couple of different tools that I sometimes use. This is a fret file that I've picked up. It's like a dagger style fret file with two different sides for multiple different sizes of fret wire. I think this thing's pretty good. So far it seems like it cuts really well. Doesn't get super clogged. I've got a little beam that I've created on my own. It's just a block of oak, and I've got 280 on one side and 500 on the other, and I've cut it so that it's dead flat. It's good enough to get me, to level several frets at once if I'm not doing a super precise job. And then I've got this little, this is essentially a knife sharpener, but it's a very flat diamond sharpening stone, and this thing cuts really great. If I'm just doing spot leveling, it's pretty on the nose. I haven't decided exactly how to attack this yet. I really only have to address the 19th fret, so I could just hit it with the fret dagger here, but I'm just not sure what I want to do yet. I think what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and spot level with probably my diamond fret file here, and I'll probably only do like these last 5 frets. Normally when I'm doing something like this, I'll set the neck dead straight, check it with my straight edge, but since I'm only focusing on the last 5 frets and the truss rod doesn't really work on those anyway, I'm just gonna wing it. I do like to use a marker sometimes and mark the ends of the frets, just kind of draw a line over the whole fret, and it kind of gives you an indication of where you're sanding, especially when I'm just working 2 spots like this. I really don't want to take much off the middle. If I was being a lot more careful, I'd probably mask off the area in between the frets. But I am throwing all caution to the wind today. Yeah, the 19th is definitely higher than the 20th and 21st. Actually, now that I'm doing this, I'm surprised I didn't have any trouble with the 21st fret, because the 20th is definitely lower. Same thing. The 18th fret is significantly lower than the surrounding frets. I've heard that a lot of Asian manufacturers use really green wood in their necks, and I think that's what causes things to sprout and twist over time. You know, normally you get a lot of sprout on the ends of the frets where the frets are poking through the sides of the fingerboard, but this one's really good. I'm actually kind of surprised. Really nothing to grab you at all. Well, I think based on the way this looks, I'm going to go ahead and recrown. I can see where the flat of the fret is where I filed, and when I'm crowning I can see where I'm taking a little bit off the sides of the fret and building up that crown, but I'm not quite getting to the top. But just in case, I am going to go ahead and remark these just so that I know I'm not going too far. And because I just barely grazed the 16th fret, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Basically what I'm doing is I'll crown until I more or less erase the blue line. I just want to see it, maybe the thinnest little sliver of blue line at the top. just to make sure I didn't take any off that I didn't need to take off. There's one thing that I really like about this file, and that is that it leaves the fret almost fine enough that I don't have to sand it any further. And I don't know what it is about this file, but it seems to be, fairly good at leaving a smooth surface. Another thing that I like about it is that it has these rounded edges on each side of the file so that I don't have to mask the fretboard. Alright, now I have just the faintest blue line and I'm going to stop. Got everything recrowned. I'm just going to do a little polish and call it done. They look good. I hope they work good. And I know that ain't good English, Mom. Alright, well, they're pretty again. I'll just get this tape pulled off and get them cleaned back up. Now the last thing, and I probably should have done this before I polished, but I'm going to do it now. I just want to take a tiny file and ever so slightly take the sharp edge off the end of these frets where they got recrowned. Right there on that tip of the hump, they just have a tiny bit of sharpness to them. Let your finger be your guide. I don't know why I bother with the top side. Nobody's ever going to get their thumb on these frets, so it doesn't really matter. I guess when you're reaching across the neck for your big solo on your $50 guitar, you could scratch the tip of your finger or something. Oh well, OCD. And I hope you guys can't hear my stomach on the camera. Grumble, grumble. Okay, reassembly time. I guess taking it apart and putting it back together twice, if that's all that happens, is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So here's hoping that's the end of it. Okay, so the next thing I want to check on this guitar is pickup height. I got a spec from Fender that says that a humbucker should be at a height of 4/64 from the string. That's a little bit over 60 thousandths. It's 62.5 thousandths to be exact. So, the way you check that is you fret the last fret and you take a ruler and measure the height of the pole pieces to the height of the string. And if you want to raise the pickup, you tighten the screw. You want to lower the pickup, you loosen the screw. That's pretty good. You can get a set of feeler gauges. I've seen some other luthiers use brass feeler gauges, non-magnetic feeler gauges, so that they're not affected by the magnets of the pickups. That's dead on. Another spec that I like to use sometimes, especially for regular Fender single coils, is I'll use a metric measurement, and I'll do 2 millimeters on the bass side and 1.5 millimeters on the treble side. So that's what I'm going to do for these stock pickups. That one's already there. I've got to flip my gauge here. It's a little too close. Alright, now the treble side. Tighten that just a touch. Tighten the middle one a touch. You can find all kinds of opinions on this and manufacturer specs in lots of places on the internet and in books. But the rule of thumb, if you just want to use 4/64 across the board, or if you want to use the 2 millimeter and 1.5 millimeter trick that I use, just stick with something consistent and then use your ear to fine tune it. If one of the pickups is louder than another one, either lower the loud one or raise the quiet one, depending upon how close you already were to the string. You should, in theory, be able to feel when a pickup is too close to the strings, because you'll get a magnetic pull on the magnets. Personally, I'm not a good enough guitar player to feel it, so I like to get them within rough spec and then make the louder pickups go farther away from the strings. I don't want to get them too close. Okay, well that's the pickup height. We'll move on to intonation next. So, intonation. When you intonate a guitar, you're working with the harmonics of the 12th fret versus the fretted note at the 12th fret. So for every string, you want to first tune the harmonic. Oh, my tuner's confused. Come on, cheap tuner. There we go. And if you don't know what a harmonic is, you might want to Google that. You just want to lightly touch the string above the 12th fret, play the note, and pull away fairly quickly, and you'll get a chime sound that's not like a fretted note at all. Oh, it kind of helps if you plug your tuner in, doesn't it? Step 1, plug your crap in. Okay, so our harmonic is on the money, and our fretted note, you don't want to push down too hard on a fretted note, by the way. And some people say you should do this in playing position. Whatever. Just don't push down too hard. Alright, so my fretted note is just a tiny bit sharp. On a Fender guitar, if your fretted note is sharp, you want to tighten the bridge screw, and that will move the saddle back and increase the length of the string. And you want to always count your number of turns so that you can always return back to the original position if you have to. I'm just going to go a quarter turn to start with, and remember, retune after you do that. So retune your harmonic. Still sharp, not quite as much. Another quarter turn. Probably 1 to 2 more of these and I'm going to get it done. That's close. I'm going to go one more. Okay, now they match. So you just want to do this all the way across the board. I tend to guess at the saddles based on marks that were already in the old bridge, and I actually got pretty close. But this is a process that just takes time, and you really need to have a decent tuner I prefer to have one with an analog sweep type, gauge on it, but to each his own. I'm using this little Korg chromatic at the moment, but you'll probably see me upgrade soon in the video. Alright, well, I'm going to do the other 5 strings, and I do them all the same, and I'll be back when I'm done. Well, I just can't leave this alone without putting a back plate on it, so I'm going to do that today. This is a Chinese back plate, and when I say that, I don't mean it's just made in China. I mean it's made for Chinese guitars. Because it has this hole spacing where the 2 side screws are directly across from each other. And I just need to trial fit it here. This is the spot where it seems to line up best with the string holes in the tremolo, and it mostly covers the screw holes. By the way, I tried to match the pickguard cover, and I think I did okay. This is cream. Maybe I could have gone with a aged white, but this pickguard is heavily yellowed. It's in the ballpark. Alright, I think what I'm going to end up doing is lining it up with maybe 2 of these holes. If I lined up with those 2, I could still get to the strings. I can almost get to the holes here, and I will cover the last 2 holes. But I'll have to re-drill them. If I don't do that, I'm going to be drilling 6 holes. You know what? We're doing all 6. Okay, so how do I do this? I've showed the trick before with the dowel rod. Today, I'm going to use a toothpick. All I'm going to do is cut 6 lengths of toothpick. I don't have to do any drilling because I've checked, and they're very close to the size of the toothpick. So, with a little glue and a little persuasion, I think they'll be okay. But I'll get to work cutting those toothpicks, and then we'll be back at this. Alright, so I got my tight bond, got my toothpicks, and the process is the same as before. Roll toothpick in the glue, maybe get a little bit down there in the hole before you get started. Place it and tap it in. And do that a few more times. So why do this at all? I guess I can't leave well enough alone is the main reason. But in terms of why I'm doing the gluing, I think main reason on that is just because I want this thing to sit flat. And, you know, you're never going to find another Washburn backplate from the 80s or 90s to replace this one, I wouldn't think. And even if you did, it wouldn't be worth paying that price. So, cheap $5 backplate, $6, whatever it was, and a little bit of elbow grease, and she'll be good as new. So I've doweled all 6 backplate holes. I cut off the first 5, and then I just wanted to show real quick again how to do this trimming of these toothpicks or dowel rods. So basically, I've got my razor blade with my taped edges, so that it doesn't cut on the edges. And then I place that flat against this, and I'm gonna work it around on both sides to score the toothpick, and then that should break it right off. So let's try it. That's all there is to it. I'm going to go back. I'm going to do a little bit of extra leveling just by scraping with my razor blade over each one of these. I'll make sure that everything's level as it can be. And then I'm going to put a drop of super glue over each one and wait that out to dry, and then do it again. And it'll be dead flat and ready to accept the new backplate. Alright, so drilling for a backplate is just like drilling for a pick guard. What I tend to do is fill the holes that I want it filled. If you remember, we doweled those, and I did paint them black again around the edges just to make sure everything was not going to show if I had ended up having to move this plate a little bit. Then I super glued over the holes, did my razor blade trick to scrape the tops of the super glue off, did my strip sanding technique to level the high spots, and I did a quick little buff with my drill, and I'm back to square one, basically an undrilled body. So get yourself a center punch if you don't have one. These things are invaluable. Find the center of the hole, give it a little tappy. It just makes a little divot for you to start a drill bit. And I do my pick guards by taping them in place. In this case, I'm just going to do 2 holes, then I'll remove this, double check that these holes are still lined up where they should be, or, that everything's stayed in the right place, and then drill the 2 center ones last. Alright, so tiny drill bit. Yeah. You don't have to go deep on these. Try to find my center punch hole. There it is. Try All right. All right, they've got good bite. Everything looks good. All right, only thing that's left to do now, I'm going to take it off one more time, then I'm going to peel the protective plastic, and then I'll put it back on. I just like to take it off to make sure I got all the sawdust out, and the protective plastic won't come out of the screw holes completely unless you take the screws out. So, kill two birds with one stone. Looks good. I don't know if you can see in the camera, but the holes are probably a quarter-inch farther up toward the neck on the bottom, and they're pretty close to the originals on the top. So all 6 did need to be re-drilled just to reposition this slightly. Was hoping that by buying the quote-unquote Chinese backplate with the same bolt pattern that I wouldn't have to re-drill, but you know, such is life. Looks good though. This is always so satisfying. And there are 2 layers on some of these pick guards. I don't know why in the world they do that, but they do. All done. Well, I'm happy to call this thing done. It's, as far as I can take it, it is a cheap guitar, but I've given it all the love that I think it deserves, and probably more. And I've given it a couple of upgrades, and just generally restored it. Why put this much money and time into a cheap guitar? Well, it wasn't a lot of money to begin with. And the time is just strictly for the love of it. So I hope you all have enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you on the next project.